Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be covering two aspects of a GCSE English language qualification, those being descriptive writing and language analysis. Descriptive writing coming from a writing section and language analysis coming from a reading section. And I'm going to share with you in this video an activity that I do with students to help practice both of these in the same activity. So that is the focus of this video. Now, in order to just remind ourselves of some of the skills or most of the skills that the examiner will be looking for or will credit you for both of these topics, you can see on the left-hand side here all of the things that make good descriptive writing, and on the right-hand side, all of the things that make good language analysis. With language analysis, for example, we need to think about, well, what is the impact? What is the effect of the words and phrases that writers use? So the sentence stems or the prompts think, feel, and imagine are often quite good and concise to help students think about, well, what is the impact of this word or phrase? And what we've got to do, of course, is we've got to appreciate the fact that the majority of words that writers will use will be consciously chosen, meaning that they'll be used deliberately because the writer is trying to convey something to you. It won't take very long for them to do that because the brain can choose these words very quickly, but a lot of the time it's not accidental. Words will be used deliberately. So language analysis is all about commenting on that. With descriptive writing really is about creating a vivid sense of place, if it's to do with a setting, or creating vivid imagery. And yes, descriptive techniques are important. Even on the sentence level, the way you begin sentences or the sentence length makes your writing interesting to read. To think about how you begin your piece of descriptive writing or even your story by using hooks, for example, using the senses. But also, because descriptive writing is a writing task, you're going to be marked on your what's called your written accuracy or your technical accuracy, meaning your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So it's also good if you know how to use a variety of punctuation, for example, that you show it off in this task. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at both of these tasks. I'm going to start by looking at descriptive writing. So a typical kind of task, particularly for AQA, paper 1 question 5, where they will give you some kind of image, often printed in colour, could be anything, could be of anything, and they're saying to you to use that image as a prompt, as a suggestion to help you write a piece of description about something. And in this case, it's a beach. So I'm going to be writing into this document now a short piece of descriptive writing, which usually would take students no more than 10 minutes. Maybe some of them would get it done in 5, because this is designed to be a concise practice rather than needing students to write the whole answer. Okay, so I'm going to, as I write in, I'm going to be talking you through some of the important skills that I'm kind of demonstrating here. So the first skill I'm using is I'm starting with a verb. I'm starting my sentence with a verb. It makes it more interesting to read, and it avoids using the word the to begin sentences all of the time. So rolling in from the expansive Atlantic, and Atlantic needs a capital letter, of course, because it's a proper noun. The waves washed onto the golden sands of the beach. So I'm using an adjective like golden to already start to create that imagery. And I'm also using alliteration there. I didn't mean to, that was accidental. The waves washed onto the golden sands, but it's definitely something that I can use in my language analysis in a minute. Peppered along the shore were footsteps, so you can imagine footprints along the sand that were gradually dissolving by let's just have a think. Peppered along the shore were footsteps that were gradually dissolving, like blankets of foam. Okay, so I've kind of thought about a comparison there. Let's think about what I could see on the beach. So shells and small pebbles. What do? They kind of glisten in the sun. So let's try and make those pebbles and those shells seem like they're sparkling like jewelry, maybe. So shells and pebbles glistened in the light like jewels. So let's now turn our attention to the sun. The sun began to set, semicolon. Semicolon, always a good punctuation mark to use. It replaces a conjunction word like and or but or because or plus, and it basically joins ideas together in sentences but in punctuation format. The sun began to set. A golden disc melted into the surface of the sea like a hot poker and turned the sea into a mirror. Let's think of different colours of um, orange, mauve, and green. Start with the verb again. Standing tall at the um, end or edge of the beach were palm trees. Colon. They're heavy and serrated, an adjective there meaning sharp. Usually use that word to describe a knife, for example. Their heavy and serrated leaves were waving at me as if they were inviting me to sit in their shade. If there's any spelling errors, I will come back and proofread in a second. Here, comma, I could start there with a preposition, maybe under or above or next to or opposite. They're quite good words at starting sentences or making paragraphs all linked together. Here, a crab lifted its pincers, surrendering itself to the soft foam of the ocean once more. Okay, so that's my micro piece of description. Very quick. It's all I need though, because it mimics the same length of extract that students get to look at language. It's not the whole extract, obviously, it's a paragraph. So you can imagine this maybe being a second paragraph of an extract in which a beach is described. So let's just see if I've got everything right. Rolling in from the expansive Atlantic, the waves washed onto the golden sands of the beach. Peppered along the shore were footsteps that were gradually dissolving like blankets of foam. Shells and small pebbles glistened in the light like jewels. The sun began to set, a golden disc melted into the surface of the sea like a hot poker and turned the sea into a mirror of orange, mauve, and green. Standing tall at the end of the beach were palm trees. Their heavy and serrated leaves were waving at me as if they were inviting me to sit in their shade. Here a crab lifted its pincers, surrendering itself to the soft foam of the ocean once more. Lovely. Okay, so there we have a piece of description, and in the lesson I would give students 5 minutes, maybe 10, to write a very short piece of description like that in relation to an image. Okay, and I would display that image on the board. So now I would say to students, right, you can either pass your piece of description to a partner, or if I wanted to get students to look at it themselves, I wouldn't, and they would just look at their own work. But now we take off our descriptive writing hat and we put on our language analysis hat. So we transition from a writing skill to a reading skill. And for those of you that know kind of language questions enough, you will know that language questions always start with how usually. So that's what I've got here. How does the writer use language to describe the beach? And we have that same piece of writing that I've just done, but now I'm looking at it from a language perspective, with a zooming in perspective with my highlighter, and I'm thinking about word choice. And of course, I'm the writer now, so I'm effectively commenting on why why my own brain chose this imagery, chose these comparisons, or chose these words. There's too many words here to talk about in 10 minutes for a language response, but I would definitely want to do maybe 3, possibly 4 of them if possible. But then again, it's always quality, not quantity. The bottom box there, I've got the techniques. Of course, with language analysis, it's not about feature spotting. It's about really the effects and the impacts of writers more than feature spotting. But if you know the technique, do include it because it's like the icing on the cake. But please don't be under the misconception that by just listing devices, you're going to do okay with language. It's not as simple as that, unfortunately. There's got to be some discussion from you as to why you think that word has been used. Think, feel, imagine, remember. So I'm going to take one of these examples and I'm going to write now a language response. Of course, what's interesting in class is that students are now talking about each other's choices of language rather than a writer that maybe lived a while ago or even a writer that isn't even in the room. So clearly, it's interesting because it shows that all of us make language choices all of the time. So let's take ourselves to a different page and let's now think about what I would say in order to analyze language. I'm going to zoom in on that metaphor with the blankets. Dissolving in blankets. I'm going to just change that in blankets of foam. Okay, so let's start by talking about the writer. So to talk about the writer straight away shows that you're conscious that the writer is very much you're kind of talking about the writer's craft here. This has been created. Okay, so the writer uses language, and it's always a good thing as well with language to use the question as the first sentence of your answer because it kind of immediately starts getting you marks because it shows that you are interpreting. And this is an analysis question. So it's all about your interpretation. The writer uses language to make the beach seem exotic and an ideal, or no, seem exotic and I'm going to use a fancy word, utopian, which means kind of perfect. The writer uses language to make the beach seem exotic and a utopian destination because of its pleasing and appealing um, kind of depiction. Okay, so as I'm writing this, I might go back and change things. That's fine. The writer uses language to make the beach seem exotic and a utopian destination because of its pleasing and appealing depiction. I don't actually quite like that. I find that a little bit waffly. So let me just change this a little bit. The writer uses language to make the beach seem exotic and a utopian destination because of its pleasing and appealing nature. That's better. Okay, so you can see even though I'm an English teacher, been teaching English for many years, I can still make changes. That's absolutely fine. And you can make changes as well in your exam. One of the ways, so we're zooming in now, one of the ways this is achieved is through the metaphor, and let me quote, dissolving in blankets of foam, which conveys. So conveys, suggests, implies, foregrounds, depicts, all of these kind of words are quite good with analysis. One of the ways this is achieved is through the metaphor dissolving in blankets of foam, which conveys the way in which the waves are washing up the beach in clumps of foam. Okay. The connotations. So connotation means kind of your associated ideas. The connotation of blankets is to do with something that is soft and fluffy, which reinforces the soft texture of the foam on the beach. Okay, readers may be able to hear the hissing sound of the foam dissolving because of the sibilant sound which mimics um, the um, the bubbles popping um, as as the waves crash on the beach. So I'm looking at the word dissolving. It has that S sound in it. I'm going to put that in quotes actually as well. Okay, so I want to make that clear that I'm taking that from the text. Readers may be able to hear the hissing sound of the foam dissolving because of the sibilant sound, which mimics the bubbles popping as the waves crash on the beach. Last sentence. Due to the evocative and utopian imagery created, the beach is presented in an idealistic way, and perhaps has associations with many readers of happy family holidays. Okay, so remember, think, feel, imagine. Makes me imagine holidays, it makes me remember holidays, it makes me feel, I suppose, like it's an exotic place, it's like an escapist place. It makes me imagine, walking around this beach and listening to this foam and this kind of very exotic and appealing utopian place. Okay, so utopian means kind of perfect and a place where you would like to go. So let's just proofread this. So the question was, how does the writer use language to describe the beach? The writer uses language to make the beach seem exotic and a utopian destination because of its pleasing and appealing nature. One of the ways this is achieved is through the metaphor dissolving in blankets of foam, which conveys the way in which the waves are washing up the beach in clumps of foam. The connotations of blankets is to do with something that is soft and fluffy, which reinforces the soft texture of the foam on the beach. Readers may be able to hear the hissing sound of the foam dissolving because of the sibilant sound, which mimics the bubbles popping on the waves as the waves crash on the beach. Due to the evocative and utopian imagery created, the beach is presented as in an idealistic way and perhaps has associations with many readers of happy family holidays. I'm not suggesting that would get full marks, maybe, but it would definitely be enough to get you, the grade 4 because of your amount of detail and the way in which you have selected and probed the language. So selected judicious quotes essentially and zoomed into them. So language is all about zooming with your highlighter and entering into that discussion in terms of why words have been used. So think, feel, imagine is often the response for language. Okay, so at this point, of course, I have to ask myself, was this what I was trying to create? Was I trying to create this kind of depiction of an idealized location? Was I trying to make the reader remember family holidays? Was I trying to make this appealing and utopian? The answer is yes. So there is a direct link here between the way in which my brain decided to depict this beach and what we've now said for the language. Okay, so it's all to do with language choice and why the writer, i.e., me in this instance, has chosen that kind of language. Okay, so that activity is known in my kind of labeling as a descriptive writing to language analysis task or a transition task, practicing 2 of those skills at once. So in summary, this is something that you could very easily replicate. You don't even need to be around other people to do it. You could do this by yourself as revision. So you could find a random image on the internet, which is going to come up in the exam perhaps, or something similar. Spend 5 to 10 minutes describing it, practicing those descriptive writing skills. Then take off your writing hat and put on your reading hat with your highlighter and select the words that you have written in order to think about, well, what words have particular effects associated with them. And then, like I've just done, write a language paragraph in which you are effectively analysing your own writing using the guidelines that your teacher has taught you about how to analyze language effectively. So it's like this cycle, and you can do that many, many times very quickly. It will take you only about 15 minutes maybe to do. Means that you gradually expand the number of pictures you've used. So something might come up in the exam that's similar. You're practicing language, you're practicing techniques. There's lots of skills that you're practicing by doing an activity like this. So hopefully that was useful. Obviously, check out my language analysis and creative writing or descriptive writing playlists in my channel to find out more. But have a go with that. You might find it more creative to do. And good luck in your studies. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.